Welcome to HipMojo, show number 20. I'm your host, Ashkan Karbas-Rushan.
And I'm CT Moore. And last week we talked about, who were some of the biggest tech company finalists in 2011.
Tech, internet media companies.
That kind of thing.
Not hardcore tech companies. All right, so last week we ran down a number of the would-be finalists. We talked about Facebook, Apple, Google, Twitter, Amazon, a few others.
Groupon,
LinkedIn, the IPO players, the LinkedIn, Zynga, Groupon, Demand Media. So we discussed this. Yeah. We each went in our own little, igloos and caves.
We got a few emails.
We basically have narrowed down the list to 3. Surprisingly, none of the IPO guys rose to the surface.
Didn't surprise me.
Well, it surprised me a bit. I thought
that makes
LinkedIn,
them maybe like a finance player of 2011, not so much a...
Even though most of the IPOs are down price-wise, I thought LinkedIn had a good story. It was the one where I think overall it's been doing pretty well since the IPO. But in any case, the 3 finalists were... I'll name the 3 companies that ended up as the top 3, and then you give us your pick, and then I'll give you the winner. So basically, in alphabetical order, Amazon, Apple, and Twitter made the last 3. First of all, are you surprised that Facebook and Google did not make the top 3?
No, I didn't even want to see them in the top 3 personally, so I'm not too surprised. They're media darlings enough, but the thing is this year, neither one of them did anything that was that super interesting. Like, yeah, Facebook got 800 million users, but and released a new timeline, but they didn't really shake things up the way they did in 2010. And Google, same thing, Google is just still Google, they're a behemoth, but nothing special.
Okay, cool. So who was your pick?
I would say Amazon. And the reason is they really fly under the radar, which I like, but they got their fingers in so many things, especially in terms of the cloud, whether it's hosting or media, like buying, consuming and buying media. They're just all over the place. They're really disrupting book publishing. They're just everywhere. And they somehow stay off the radar, and I think that makes them my number 1 pick, because somehow everyone uses them, whether or not they know it.
Okay, I think Amazon, I see your point. They did some things this year, like the Fire, that are probably going to be kicking ass in years to come. Okay, we said this last week that Apple probably did 2 things in terms of the iCloud and Siri that are going to maybe change the company and keep it into this massive growth machine. But I agree that Apple was maybe the sentimental pick this year. I was actually leaning towards either Facebook and Twitter. And it's not so much that, 800 million, it's the inevitable growth, but I actually think that Facebook really this year, they basically made the cynics in terms of their revenue growth shut up, like I was a cynic. But I now see that there is enough in terms of, as much as I think social media advertising is a lot of hype, I think just because of Facebook's sheer size, they are going to get enough advertising budgets. Facebook is like a must-buy, regardless of what the performance is to some extent. And I think in terms of credits and virtual currencies and all that, there might be something there if they play their cards right. I like Amazon more than Apple. The winner ultimately, and I won't lie, this was also my number 1 finalist, was Twitter.
Surprise, surprise.
Now, one note is, if you are going to ask people to vote in, you should really discount those, because we had a lot of random votes, including a lot of votes for WatchMojo. I think that was my family voting out of pity, probably. So don't worry, it was not WatchMojo. So it was Twitter, and I'm going to tell you why I think Twitter deserves it in the end. This year, probably the story of the year, if you ask Time Magazine, was the protester. And if you take a look at the major social and political current, it really was basically, the Occupy Wall Street movement, as well as the Arab Spring, summer, fall, winter.
I think Arab Spring completely eclipses Occupy Wall Street. And even now, late in the year, we have Russia.
Russia, exactly. And I think the role that social, it's like people will say, technology took down Mubarak and Gaddafi. No, technology did not do that, but it helped accelerate it. It was the enabler.
I think technology let us Westerners know that they were being taken down. I don't think technology had anything to do with taking them down.
That's actually the greatest thing I've ever heard. I agree, but now at least when Gaddafi gets killed, there's less propaganda. There's still a lot of propaganda. But my point is, I totally see this year why social media played a part in telling the story and enabling the story. But the reason why I think Twitter really stood out was, sure, they're only making $180 million in revenue, but guys, that's still $180 million in revenue, and they have so much money in the bank that they don't really need to rush to force a business model if it's going to hurt the user experience. Now take a look at what Facebook has started to do, which is basically start running sponsored posts in somebody's feed. I think stuff like that is going to alienate a lot of people. But ultimately, I think this is the year, and we're going to touch base on this about journalism and bloggers and all that. This is the year where I think Twitter became the virtual newsroom.
Well, maybe that makes it the people's pick. I don't think that makes it a great tech company.
But it's not about but this list going back to 1994 has been about internet media.
And you know, I'll even argue that if you're going to take that line, you can say that YouTube is neck and neck with them, because as much as people tweeted the hell out of Occupy Wall Street and Arab Spring, all the really sexy coverage that came out was pretty much video, like Gaddafi getting shot.
Okay, but where did you find out about we got Osama? Where did you find about Steve Jobs resigning? Where did you find about, I mean, I know this is the early adopter crowd. Still a hell of a lot of people get this stuff from TV, but personally, I think Twitter really this year just maybe stood up a bit, broader shoulders, a bit more confidence. I think they're addressing the revenue. Yeah, if you divide their total revenue divided by the number of clients, it's still puny. Yeah, you could argue there's all these things. But at the end of the day, in terms of the company that I think really, after January to December, really did the most to sort of advance relative to its peers, I think was Twitter. I think Twitter is the news platform of the future. Everybody's on Twitter. News journalists use it, bloggers use it, media companies use it. It basically, I don't want to say replaced RSS, it was the extension of RSS. I just think it's an exciting platform to go direct, like look at celebrities. I mean, look at Ashton Kutcher. We laugh about it, but even the more, that's the thing. It's such an amplifier communication tool that I just think this year it deserves it. If like Time is going to pick the protester as like the person of the year, it almost
Twitter's
makes
the tool of the year?
Yeah, maybe the tool in more ways than one. So that is the pick. So we're going to update the list, which start off with 1994 AOL and the defending. So basically, if Groupon was here, they would pass the the trophy over to
They couldn't
Twitter.
make it in?
They couldn't make it in. No, they're. Okay, I could say something funny, but it's actually not that funny. It's just rude. Okay, so anything else on this, or is it time to move to segment 2?
Let's move on.
Segment
Let's leave
2.
2011 behind.
2011 is over. We're going to talk about research in motion. We'll be right back.